Thanks, Senator Fawcett. Senator Singh.
Thank you very much, Chair. Mr Varghese, on the 12th of October last year, Fairfax Media published a story about Australia's bid for the UN Human Rights Council. And I'd just like to read a few sentences of the story for you. Foreign Minister Julie Bishop says Australia is a leading contender to win a seat on United Nations' preeminent human rights body, despite scathing recent criticism from the UN of the government's asylum seeker policies. Ms Bishop told Fairfax Media that Australia's bid is consistent with our nation's history of promoting and protecting human rights. Our strong and principled stand on numerous human rights issues in our role as a temporary member of the Security Council will form part of our campaign, she said. We abide by our international obligations and we are confident that our experience and our commitment to human rights protection and promotion makes us a strong contender for the UNHRC. Secretary, can I confirm Australia is still pursuing a seat on the UN Human Rights Council?
Yes, we are.
Okay. Earlier this month, in response to the Abbott government's disgraceful attack on the President of the Australian Human Rights Commission, Professor Triggs, a UN working group on arbitrary detention urged Australia, and I quote, to respect the rule of law and the international system for the protection of human rights by according the Australian Human Rights Commission and its President the respect that its role as the national human rights institution and her personal authority and high reputation require. Earlier this week now, the International Coordinating Committee of National Institutions for the Promotion and Protection of Human Rights, which is the UN recognised umbrella body of national human rights institutions, also raised concerns about the Australian government's behaviour in a letter sent to the Prime Minister, to Prime Minister Abbott, on the 23rd of February. So that was this Monday, I think. And it said that these public attacks seek to call into question the independence of the office which Professor Triggs holds and cause harm to her professional integrity. It furthermore undermines and intimidates the statutorily granted independence that the country's principal human rights, that is provided to the country's principal human rights body. It says these actions also take place against the background in which just last year Australia was the lead sponsor of Human Rights Council Resolution 2527 on NHRIs. This resolution encourages NHRIs to continue to play an active role in preventing and combating all violations and abuses of human rights and recognises NHRIs and their respective members and staff should not face any form of reprisal or intimidation, including political pressure, physical intimidation, harassment or unjustifiable budgetary limitations as a result of activities undertaken in accordance with their respective mandates, including when taking up individual cases or when reporting on serious or systematic violations in their countries. I'm getting to the question. I just want to fully brief the Secretary before I put the question to him. Finally, it just says, in a healthy democracy, an NHRI report should be received within the spirit that the contents and recommendations contained therein is to further the adherence to international human rights norms and standards and ensure the promotion and protection of human rights. Finally, with the greatest respect, we request that you take note of our deep concerns and that you address the matter. In the interim, my office will be sharing our concerns with the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights and with our ICC members. So in light of that letter being sent to Prime Minister Abbott just this week, how do these statements impact on Australia's international reputation?
Well, Senator, Our bid for a seat on the Human Rights Committee will be determined in 2017 at an election in the UN General Assembly. We take all of these sorts of campaigns seriously. We don't assume anything, and we will be doing our best to ensure that we're elected for the first time to sit on this body. We will build our campaign around what I believe is a very respectable, indeed robust reputation for support for human rights internationally that goes back a very long time and which has had bipartisan support in Australia for very many decades. We are a country that has always been a strong advocate of the rule of law. We're a country that has been a very strong advocate for strengthening international law and international rules and for giving effect to international norms through treaties and other legal frameworks. I think on any measure, in an international context, our human rights credentials are very, very strong. And we think that they are certainly strong enough to merit election to the Human Rights Committee in 2017. You read out some views, which I'm sure there will be a number of views expressed over time about this issue, but I don't think that will detract from the overall contribution we've already made and which we want to continue to make, particularly through a seat on the Human Rights Committee.
Well, are you aware of that letter that I just read
Yes, I am.
parts out? You are aware of that letter. And you're aware that that letter was sent to the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. So you didn't really answer my question, Mr. Varghese. I did actually ask how you see these statements impacting on Australia's international reputation.
Well, I think our international reputation on human rights still stands strong as it ought to.
But I'm particularly relating to this letter, and you're aware of the letter.
I don't think that letter in and of itself has a substantive impact on Australia's long-built international reputation in support of human rights.
Well, it's not the letter, it's the substance the letter relates to.
Well,
so it's specific, specifically, would you agree that the Abbott government's disgraceful attack on the President of the Australian Human Rights Commission...
Senator Singh, you must just ask the question, and you can't expect this official to answer the question in a way that you might hope.
All right, well, I'll take
would.
disgraceful out, even though it was.
Well,
I will take disgraceful out, and I'll ask the question.
You might have that view, but the Secretary has responded to your question, and can I respectfully suggest that you continue on with a new tack?
All right, well, look, I'll conclude with this question.
Thank you.
Mr. Varghese, would you agree that the Abbott government's attack on the President of the Australian Human Rights Commission will have a negative impact on Australia's bid for a seat on the UN Human Rights Council?
I think that with respect, that's an opinion, Senator Singh, but the Secretary can answer it how he likes, but it is an opinion.
Well, Senator, I'm not going to offer an opinion one way or another on the debate that has occurred over the Human Rights Commission. But what I will say to you is we go into this campaign for a seat on the Human Rights Committee with very strong credentials, with every intention of winning, and I don't believe anything that has happened in the last couple of days is going to diminish our prospects in any substantial manner.
Well, can you at least provide the committee with how DFAT will respond to issues that have arisen out of this week and, you know, the last couple of months in relation to this government's response to the President of the Australian Human Rights Commission's report into children in detention, and how it then will affect our bid on the UN Human Rights Council.
Well, to the extent that we're requested to provide an input to any reply that the Prime Minister may choose to send to that letter, we will do so, and we will use that as an opportunity to make clear what Australia's position on human rights is, and if I may also say, to make it clear that nothing that has occurred in the debate of the last few days in any way changes the long-standing support that Australian governments of both persuasions have given to the importance of national human rights machinery.
Thank you, Senator Singh.